commissioners are in attendance with the exception of Kent Anderson.
It's working on it.
Oh, I'm sorry, Michelle, did I jump the gun?
It might. Yeah, you're good.
Are we good?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, all the commissioners are present with the exception of Kent Anderson, who has been excused for the evening. This is the time when we set aside for public comment. They are for Riverdale citizens in attendance whose concerns are not included in tonight's slate. And if you have anything you need to discuss with us, if you'd come forward and state your comments or concerns. All right, then we can move on to presentations and reports from Mr. Eggett.
Thank you. Just wanted to note kind of what was noted in the work session, that in kind of a quick fashion, the Farmers Insurance building continues to be demolished. We anticipate seeing a site plan proposal shortly to the Planning Commission in the coming meetings. It won't be the next meeting, but maybe the one thereafter. That could be the soonest. So that is forthcoming for a new restaurant use. As you all remember, we had a conditional use permit request last meeting on that for a Shake Shack use. So just a heads up there. We also received today new plans or updated plans for the Hillside at Riverdale Subdivision up at the top of Ritter Drive. So that will come back to the Planning Commission for final recommendation review at your next meeting. We also received a resubmittal for the America First Ops site plan and subdivision. That's part of the vacation discussion tonight. That will come next week for your recommendation review. And then we received the new Riverdale Townhome. I can't remember the term for it. It's something like Riverdale Townhome Subdivision located behind Bed Bath & Beyond. That will be your first review in two weeks for that preliminary review on that one. So anticipate that. And then finally, I noted Maverick is coming along pretty quickly up there on the top of the hill. So, the way they're moving could be for too long. Oh, and I did fail to note, I did get a request from the Chick-fil-A team for an extension. So that will come before the commission for a review of their extension request at your next meeting for a 6-month extension on their project. He'll give some reasoning, but the bottom line, some of the reasoning is they're just working out some of the access and easements and rights of use on the property that still haven't been hammered out with surrounding property owners and their projects. So there's been a few delays that were unforeseen, but they're close, he said. But they do need the extension because they'll be up. I think it's in June if they don't get it. So that's pretty much, that's the report I have.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, next item on the agenda is consent items. Does anybody have anything they would like to add or take away from the minutes of the April 26th work session and regular meeting?
Make a motion to approve the April 26, 2022 work session and regular meeting minutes.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we can move then on to action items. Number one, this is a public hearing to receive and consider comments regarding the proposed roadway vacation petition for Cozydale Drive at 1500 West and 4650 South and 4675 South to 1300 West and 1350 West is located between approximately 4800 South and 4400 South in Riverdale, Utah, as requested by America First Federal Credit Union and AWA Engineering. Mr. Eggett?
Thank you. I'll just there we go. I'll quickly cover what's in your executive summary, and then if there's any questions after the public hearing, we can further discuss it. The requestant is, or petitioner is America First Credit Union. We do have present Kim and Tim tonight representing America First. We did anticipate maybe Natalie Nichols or Jake Tate with AWA Engineering, so they may come in late to answering any engineering questions you may have for them. The submittal is as noted for the roadways noted in the packet. The affected right-of-way is located along property zoned as light manufacturing M1 zone and regional commercial C3 zone. This is guided and steered by Utah State Code 10-98-609.5 to hold a public hearing regarding the public street right-of-way vacation request. And you'll notice in the packet reasons or the test for a vacation request is good cause exists for the vacation and to verify that the public interest or any persons will not be materially injured by the proposed vacation. So that's what we're looking at tonight. I did receive two inquiries regarding the rezone request. We did send out, or required to send out letters of the, not rezone, I'm sorry, I'm mixing them up, vacation. Sent out letters of notice of the vacation to affected utility entities and property owners regarding this. We did receive one inquiry just for more information and from a property owner, neighboring property owner, and then I received an inquiry from Rocky Mountain Power. And I did call back. I did answer the neighboring property owner inquiry with some of the questions they had, and then also called back Rocky Mountain Power to let them know the biggest concern or question was, will there still be access and use and availability to existing infrastructure needs for the properties as well as the utility company being Rocky Mountain Power. And so that's something I kind of explained to them, that there's going to be a new roadway and that, you know, even though these areas, were they to be approved, may be vacated, they would still, as far as we understand, be in place until such time the private owners, again, given that they were vacated, would utilize those. So those access ways, just because they're being vacated, aren't going to be demoed and dug up right away, right? That's kind of the point I made. But anyway, I figured you should be aware of that. This does line up with what I just noted regarding their preliminary subdivision. As you may recall in their last request, the preliminary subdivision does show a new alignment for the Cozy-Dale Drive / 1500 West, or parentheses 1500 West roadway to connect to 4400. So that still is to come in as part of their future master campus plan and their subdivision. The general plan used for the area of this vacation is special use district light industrial business park and planned commercial high as far as what's being impacted. You'll see thereafter comments from our city engineer regarding some concerns he has with the actual vacation plat we've received. There's 5 comments or corrections, things he's looking for specifically, and some questions he has that the engineering team will want to vet. And then you'll see that all the noticing documents are found thereafter. And then at the very end, you'll see the actual vacation plat. So with that, I would turn it back over to you to move forward with the public hearing as you see appropriate. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have somebody here from?
Motion.
I move that we open the public hearing.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now turn the time
Now.
over. Yeah.
Now we can have the Federal Employee Credit Union people come.
Well, any members of the public who might want to address this vacation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, invite any members of the public who might want.
Okay, anybody who would like to, yes. Anybody have a comment that they'd like to ask a question? Okay, commissioners, do we have any questions?
At this point, you do a motion to close the public hearing, then we could go into the part B.
Thank you. This is my first public
No, it's
hearing.
okay. You're doing great, Kathy. You're doing great.
Okay, a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Now we could go to part B.
Okay, consideration to forward recommendations to the city council regarding the proposed roadway vacation petition for Cozy Dale Drive. Do I have to go through the whole thing?
You could just say as noted in the last item if you feel like it.
Okay, as noted in the last item for the Federal Credit, America First Federal Credit Union and AWA Engineering.
Now, comments from the,
Oh, yes. Commissioners?
Questions, comments? I think I have a question about the utilities and wanting to make sure that the roadway, the new roadway, is the person from America First here?
maybe, I don't know, would it be Natalie or Tim or? Okay. And while you're coming up, Natalie, one other thing that I thought about, I don't know if the vacation plat addresses any public utility easements, but maybe you can know, does it Does it address public utility easement vacation as well?
I will have to double check.
Okay,
on that
we
since I
probably
don't
need to,
have it.
that's come up from utility company.
Okay.
So if we're going to vacate the roadway, clearly we would want to also equally vacate the public utility easements where appropriate in those roadways. Anyway, sorry, Commissioner Herman, I didn't mean to take your steam.
No problem. That and that's kind of, I have kind of a two-part question. First of all, it seems kind of we're way early on in the process. Maybe that's your design and your goal to get this part done. But being so early on, is the plan to vacate that road before the subdivision starts? And when the road is vacated, will the new road be put in place before the Cozy Drive is vacated and all the utilities moved and things like that, so that no one will be without utilities and those types of things?
Right. So the subdivision plat, along with this vacation plat, are being reviewed at the same time. The utilities that are in the existing Cozydale will remain public for the time being, with the new Cozydale being proposed and installed with this operations building that's going to be coming in. So the new Cozydale is going to be installed first as we go through all the phasing. This project is, the reason for this vacation is America First is going to be building out their whole campus, which includes kind of new buildings in that alignment of the existing Cozydale. As we continue on, this is like a 10 to 20 year project. As the buildings come up through this corporate campus, we're going to be rerouting some of that public utilities so we've got some new utilities, public utilities going into the new Cozydale. And as these new buildings come up, the existing utilities within Cozydale will be rerouted so that they no longer go through there. But as we start this project, those will remain. Some of them will be capped, and a portion of them will remain, as the existing data center will be using that until further phases of this project.
So with that, if I might interject, so what it sounds like you're saying on behalf of America First then, Natalie, is that there may be a future vacation plat for the public utility easements or public utility needs later after the fact, like a second one.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's a phased process where as one part of it, you vacate one part of the road, you'll move those utilities up to the other part. Is that basically what you're saying, as I understand it? Or are we vacating the entire road at the roadway at the same time? And then, and if that's the case, why aren't we moving all the utilities at the same time? Because otherwise we're having to dig up the new road every time that we're going to a new phase, a new section, and that sort of thing.
So that's a good question. We are vacating all of the roads right now, but not relocating all of the utilities in the existing Cozydale during this phase. The new Cozydale is going to have utility stubs to the property, so as future builds, they don't have to cut into the road. Obviously, we don't want to be cutting into new pavement every time something comes up. So with our master plan, we've got a master utilities design so that we don't have to be cutting into that road, but it's also designed to sustain the whole development as it comes online. The existing utilities are going to remain public within the vacated road during transition between phases. As we continue with the phasing, some of the buildings will be placed over the current locations of the utilities, so at that time those will have to be relocated. But we are putting in the public utilities within the new Cozydale, which all of the new buildings that are going to be built in the next several years will be going off of.
When are you planning on doing the road? I mean, after, say, everything's been approved, I mean, is this down the road or?
Nope, this is going to be one of the first construction things as we go We're planning on putting in a new operations building alongside the new Cozy Dell, because that'll be the entrance to how you get into that building. So it'll be one of the first things that goes in.
And I noticed you sent out your notices to, looks like 11 different businesses and organizations.
I actually did that. That's what the state code requires us to do. So I sent those notices out. Yeah.
Does she know any of, has there been any feedback from any of these?
Have any of the utility companies listed in the packet reached out to you that you know of? I've heard from Rocky Mountain Power, but that's the only one.
We've heard back from several of the utility companies that we've reached out to, and none of them have commented saying that they have any issues with what we're moving forward with.
Good, thanks.
Okay, now this road is going to be huge. I understand it's going to be a 4-lane, 2 one way, 2 the other way, part of it, right?
I believe it's an 80-foot right-of-way, and I think it's just one way each, so it's a 2-lane with a median in the middle.
Okay, and how many roundabouts? Because this is a big property. Each of these roundabouts will let your employees get into a different part of your.
You can come
right?
up, Kim, if you need towards him.
It will be a 2-lane road, both directions with
So 4 lanes.
so 4 lanes.
Okay.
Yes.
Starting from where to where?
With a center turn lane. I'm getting help in the back. That will be the main Cozy Dell Road. We'll have that. The turnoff roads would be single lane each direction. But from 1500 West, where Maverick is located, all the way to the roundabout on 4400 would be the 2 lanes with a center lane. Is
So
that correct, Natalie?
will there be roundabouts along that
Just
place?
one new roundabout
Yeah, just one
proposed at this point.
And that's
4,800.
about 4,800. Yeah, approximately.
okay.
Sorry, Natalie.
No,
I just wanted to
Natalie?
make sure, because she asked if there were 4 lanes, and there are, so.
There.
To have you give us your name.
Natalie.
Okay,
Nichols.
and
I'm with-
where is your city of residence?
I'm in, I work in Salt Lake City.
She's with AWA Engineering.
Okay, Kim, we know where you live, but you can tell us anyway.
I'm Kim Choate, and I work for America First Credit Union, but I also live here in Riverdale,
Okay.
so.
Thank you, ladies.
So he asked a question. He asked, when did you anticipate this start? And have you any idea when we can see this road start in the construction?
We would like to start in July, August.
this year.
Of this year.
Those are good questions.
I have a real crazy question to ask you. I mean, I think you're going to leave the old one running until you get the other one going around, right? And then you will close that off with a gate so someone doesn't come into your facility that shouldn't be there, right?
So we will be having new fences around these buildings where, we don't want the public to be in for security reasons. We will be providing, so with the new construction of the roundabout at 4800, we're going to have to close off a portion of the existing Cozy Dell, just so that we're not, with the design, we can't have another leg to the roundabout. So we're going to have a temporary connection point from the new roundabout to the existing Cozy Dell as we continue to have employees continue to get to their current locations and offices.
She knows the details really well.
And then at that point, the Cozy Dell will be removed so that all the people that are going to be going to this new operations building will have to go to the new Cozy Dell and down into the parking that we've designed.
But I think to answer your question is yes, there will still be a way to get from point A to point B, so 4400 to Riverdale Road during the construction process.
Correct.
Until the new road is accessible. Good question.
Good luck.
It's a big project and we're really excited for it.
Any more questions? And a motion would be in order.
Let's see.
We're working on it.
I make a motion to forward to the city council the proposed roadway vacation petition for Cozydale Drive, 1500 West, 4650 South, 4675 South, 1300 West, and 1350 West, as located between approximately 4800 South and 4400 South, Riverdale, Utah, 84405, as requested by America First Federal Credit Union and AWA Engineering, with any staff, anything the staff needs.
So when you say you motion to forward with a favorable recommendation?
Favorable, sorry.
Okay. No, it's okay. Just wanted that clear.
Favorable recommendation and anything that the staff.
And
needs.
resolve the engineering concerns and other staff concerns.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I recommend a roll call vote on this one?
Full commission.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Michelle?
Commissioner Spires,
Aye.
Commissioner Herman,
Aye.
Commissioner Wingfield,
Aye.
Commissioner Nye,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner Eskelson.
Aye. And the voting is unanimous. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time. With that, I think we're ready to go on to action item number 2 and have a public hearing to receive and consider comments regarding the proposed rezone request from agricultural A1 zoning to single-family residential R1 4.5 zoning property located at approximately 3450 South Parker Drive, Riverdale, Utah, as requested by Hugh Park.
You want me to give a quick summary?
Yes,
Okay.
Mike, thank you.
Great. All right, the petitioner on this one is Hugh Park on behalf of James and Julie Purin. As noted, the properties are currently zoned A1 agricultural. The request is from the A1 to R1 4.5 surrounding zone properties. That's where I got a little confused when I looked at this. Are R18 single family residential, and single family rental unit residential R2 zoning that are adjacent to this property. And then to the north, I think that's A1, the storage units. Do you remember, Michelle? Well, it's right behind me. Yeah. So the storage units are also A1 zone. So there you go. There's the zoning surrounding the property. It's 4 acres of land. And the current use of the property, as many of you are familiar, is it's just currently sitting vacant. The general plan guidance for this area said is agricultural, and it's located in Area 5 of the Riverdale General Plan Land Use Master Plan map and in the document itself. There is a public hearing requirement that has been noticed appropriately per state code for this site, and all the and obviously we scheduled it 2 weeks ago. The property has been signed, and all the supporting documentation for the public hearing is found in your packet. I have received a few inquiries about this rezone request and shared some information relative to what's in the packet tonight that you have, and advise them if they feel like they want to be present to come to the public hearing to comment. You'll see in your packet thereafter all the general plan documentation, the application itself, the responses from the applicant, Mr. Park, who's present tonight, which is found on page, well, I thought I could find the page number, but anyway, it's in your packet following the packet. It looks like page 38. And then you'll see the supporting documentation thereafter that he's provided. Following that, you'll see all the notifications that have gone out regarding the public hearing for the property, evidence of the signage being placed on the property, and then the advertisements that have been set in the paper and posted in the building. So with that, I think that I would refer back to the Planning Commission to move forward with the public hearing. Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion for the public hearing to open?
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
A second?
Aye.
Second?
Aye.
Second it.
I second
Thank
it.
you, Rick.
The wrong word. I'm sorry.
That's fine. All in favor, say aye. 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 Okay, the public hearing is now open. If anybody would like to make any comment or ask questions, they're welcome to come forward. Please state your name and your city of residence.
My name's Tammy Donahue, and I live in Riverdale. I am one of the residents that's going to be affected by this. The agricultural piece is my backyard, and I feel like if you're putting an R14 or R4 home on the property, that is going to devalue my home, which is a R18. And I currently don't have any children that live with me right now, but that's neither here nor there. And if you put more homes in there, you're putting more weight on the school system, which I think is pretty heavy right now with all the children in our area. And I don't know about the roadway. The roadway is it goes around a corner by the storage sheds, and there's not a lot of, so I don't know if there's been a road study done on that area. It just to me that I don't want a lesser value home behind me than I currently live in. Thank you.
You have 3 minutes. State your name.
You rule enforcer, you. Hello, commissioners. It's a pleasure to be here. I was hoping when I left the planning commission that you'd all fall apart and there'd be a consensus to beg me to come back. But honestly, I'm impressed with the questions that have been asked tonight of the previous applicant. I'm amazed. So congratulations to yourself and thanks from the city. But I appear to you tonight as a citizen of Riverdale and in no other way. My property also is adjacent to this development. A little bit of background. When I first moved to that location, there was no storage shed, and this property was all in its natural state, and it was all a river overflow area. And you could walk across it and feel eons of river underneath your feet. It was spongy. It still is in the places that haven't been filled. So the city senior folks at the time when I moved in was not on any public service. They assured me that land was envisioned to be a park. It wanted to be an extension. The city wanted that to be an extension of the River Parkway. They envisioned picnic tables and boweries up in there, but no grass and no other development, basically trying to make the trailway have more value. So with that in mind, that was part of our reason to move there and enjoy that swamp and the isolation that brought us. So as some of you probably are aware, the city was essentially forced by the courts to allow the storage shed development to take place. Otherwise, they tried their best to keep that zoned agricultural as well. When that was imposed upon them, the city again asserted to the property owners around that the city intended to keep what's left a park. So it's zoned agricultural, not as an accident and not for lack of action, but because of action. And it's in the master plan as agricultural because of action. So with that background, my personal interest is I definitely think that our 145 is the worst possible proposal for this land if it ever does get developed. That's way too small of lots. The city has turned down similar proposals in other areas. And not that I'm going to be a big fan of any development there, because I do hope that becomes trailway extension. But if it does turn anything, it ought to be R18 to match the value of the property next to it. It would be a shame to downgrade what is essentially the nicest, one of the nicest sections of Riverdale, and to essentially damage that at this point. Thank you.
And I just would note for the record, that was Mr. Steve Hilton, and he does live in Riverdale.
I can almost say his address.
Okay, I'm Braden Mitchell, a longtime Riverdale resident, and I'm here as a regular citizen tonight. And I don't have any voting rights anymore. And so I am grateful for the opportunity to come to a public hearing and express my thoughts. And so I'm grateful to you guys that serve on the Planning Commission. It's kind of a thankless job. You're over here spending your time on a Tuesday night, and I would dare say most of the residents probably don't know who the members of the Planning Commission are. It's not a lot of fanfare and stuff, so thank you. I did find something interesting on the website, on the city website. Does any of you know what it says about the Planning Commission? It says the Planning Commission has a greater opportunity to affect community change than any other public agency. So that's a lot of responsibility you guys have. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. So I don't want to take a lot of time, but I want to reiterate what Mr. Hilton said. The general plan calls for this area to be agricultural, and that's what it's zoned right now, is A1. The Planning Commission has kind of a history of following the general plan, which is a guiding document. You're not bound by that document, but it is something that guides your decisions and helps you. And if you don't find any compelling reasons or factors to go against the general plan, then generally just kind of stick with that. I do want to make one thing clear. This is nothing personal against the developer, Mr. Park. He's done other projects in Riverdale. He's done a great job. Certainly there's nothing personal in this. It's just some residents down in that area that are concerned. And okay, so we talked about compelling reasons. One thing I did find kind of humorous, and this is on page 38. I almost told Mr. Eggett that application is on page 38 because I printed that and brought it with me. The petitioner has to give a reason why they think it should be rezoned, and down at the bottom it says currently the property is not utilized and is an eyesore. And none of the people that I talk to think it's an eyesore. We love that property. Kind of wish it was still a swamp. To be honest, it was beautiful. There's still quite a bit of wildlife, but the swamp was gorgeous. There was a pond back there. There was, waterfowl and foxes and deer, and so it's a beautiful area. The general plan, like I said, calls for it to be agricultural. There is a sentence in the general plan that says that at some point it may develop as low-density residential. Now, I'm kind of with Mr. Hilton. I wouldn't want to see that, but there is that sentence in there. And, our general plan is getting kind of dated. There may come a time when it does get redone, and maybe that will come up. But like I said, right now it says low density, okay? If you go to Title 10 in our code, it gives the different zones. This is 10-9B-1, purpose and intent. It says the purpose of the R110, R18, and R16 zone classifications is to provide regulated areas for single-family residential use at 3 different low-density levels. The purpose of the R1-4.5 zone classification is to provide regulated areas for single-family residential use at a moderate density. So even this doesn't really match with what the general plan says. It's just one more thing that kind of shows that it's probably not the best fit for that property. If it does have to develop, I'm kind of, it's agricultural. I'd love to see it be a park or something that's allowed in the agricultural zone. But if it does have to develop, I think something a little more in line with what's around it. It's a beautiful piece of property. I have residents that have expressed to me, hey, we raised our family in a little home here and we want to stay in Riverdale. Why isn't there any bigger homes or bigger lots going anywhere where we could buy a home? Everything you're putting in is small lots with small homes. And so there is a desire for nice homes on an R1.8 or type lot. And so if we had to do something, I think that's a better match to the surrounding properties. So once again, just appreciate all you do, and I'm happy to have an opportunity to express my opinion. Thanks.
Part of the open public, or do you want to call?
I'd wait till
do you want me to comment after?
It's probably better as the developer after.
Okay.
Okay, there would be a motion in order to close the public hearing.
Go ahead.
I propose that we close the public hearing.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I can say I now, right?
Okay, so where do I go from
So,
here?
so
Okay. Okay, consideration to forward a recommendation to the city council regarding the proposed rezone request from agricultural A1 zoning to single-family residential, as requested by Hugh Park. Is that enough of a?
I would invite Mr. Park to come up as a developer.
Okay, Mr. Park. State your full name and your city of residence.
My full name that my parents would call me by when I was in trouble.
Works.
I'm Hugh Park. I'm from Layton, Utah, and I'm grateful to be here tonight. And thank you for your comments. In fact, you actually pulled a lot of the information out from the city plan that I had already looked up. And so, Mr. Mayor, you've actually done a lot of good homework, and I appreciate you bringing those items up. You're probably correct. I probably should not have used eyesore. So our objective here is, I've really enjoyed working with Riverdale City. We've done 3 projects in the city, and so we've brought some really great residents into Riverdale City, and they've really loved being here. We are in kind of challenging times right now with development. There's not a lot of pieces left. We work with infill pieces, and I know this piece has a lot of challenges. And so with that being said, I know this piece has a lot of history that I'm sure I'm not aware of all of the history as the residents are. And so we are, cognizant of that and sensitive to that. Couple of things that we wanted to take a look at the R1 4.5 zoning is that we want some narrower lots. We're not going to go down to the 45-foot minimum that is allowed in the zone. And the lots are actually going to be around 5,000 to 5,800 square feet. So just because of how it's laid out, but we would like to do some slab on grade. There's many issues that this property has with all the fill and with all of the, there was some supposed wetlands, but that's all been taken care of. We have had meetings with the city engineer and with Sean Douglas, and I've met with Mike. We had an open meeting with the mayor and just chatted with him about a few things to introduce, to introduce who we are. And so we feel like we have a good plan put together through engineering and through the that we can sustain the roads and take care of the homes on this property. And we feel like we have a really good plan. So one reason we're going for the 4.5, townhomes are not a good fit for this area. But we have the commercial to the north and the bigger homes and the homes to the south, and we felt like we wanted to do some transitional zoning in there to allow to going from commercial, I know it's zoned or agricultural, but technically a commercial piece, to residential. And so one other thing I would like to note in your general plan under your page 47, under the Riverdale housing goals and objectives, items number 6 and number 7, it says sustain a mix of lot sizes and housing types in existing developments so that moderate income housing is properly integrated and not concentrated in one development area. So we're not doing moderate housing, but it's talking about integrating the zoning so that you don't have just one solid zone in an area. And then it says, encourage requirements to keep moderate income housing consistent with other residential development within the city, such as landscaping, quality of building materials, and varied architectural styles. So again, the projects that we have done in the city are Panunzio Farms, Old Mill, Mitchell Farms, and you can see the quality of those. They all have brick, stone, stucco, hardy board, and those types of amenities, and they're very well maintained and kept. Plus they have an HOA where the HOA takes care of the yards and maintains and keeps things nice. So that is the direction that we wanted to go in order to do this. And so that's what we're looking for. All of these homes are going to be slab on grade. They are going to be 2-story homes. And I've shown some examples to our neighbors next door to us and kind of shown them what our plans are and being very upfront with everybody and, talking to them about what our desires are. So I don't know if you have any further questions for me or if there's anything else I can answer, but that's the direction that we would like to go.
I have a question about the wetlands. In the past, some of the developments, and this is going way back when I first started on the Planning Commission, they weren't allowed to just eliminate them, but they were allowed to basically move them. Is that what you're doing on this, or?
We're not going to touch any of the. Okay, so there has been a wetland study. The Army Corps of Engineers have signed off on. There was a study done by Bowen and Schuler. What's Bowen Collins.
You have it in writing from the Army Corps of Engineers?
Yes,
signed
we do.
off?
I have all that documentation right here.
Because when was it? The Army Corps Engineers, probably 15 so years ago, they wouldn't allow it.
So I think some of that was affected by the fill that was brought in on the property that was done by the Purin family. And these are some of the issues that we're dealing with. But since then, there has been a readjustment of the wetlands and a readjustment of the floodplain. And so the wetlands, they had a study done by Bowen Collins, and they had a professional engineer come in, and they discuss, and there's about an 85-page report documenting everything around that property. And what was found that there is a pipe along the north property line that drains the subdivisions. I don't know if there's about two, Sean told me there were 2 subdivisions that drained into that pipe. It runs north along Parker Lane and then turns and goes under the road on the north side of the property that we're looking at right now between us and the storage units. And then it goes out and it just dumps out onto the ground. So it doesn't drain to the river, it doesn't go anywhere, it just percolates into the ground. And so that is what they've determined that is the cause of the wetlands out there. So what they did is they did a report and they've defined the wetlands to 1/4 acre that's out there in the area where that pipe comes out and drains out onto the property. And it's non-jurisdictional, and so it's non-coastal waters, but they've made a jurisdictional delineation as to where that is, and we are not planning on touching that. We're going up to a certain point and then stopping, and then the last east acre is not going to have any, we're not going to develop it at all. So.
Do you have more questions?
So who's going to maintain that wetland that you're not going to do anything with?
It's just going to sit as just natural as it is. So the Riverdale City owns the property to the west, to the east of us, and they just have all. It's just open area and it's just natural ground. So they don't. We're not going to try and mow it. We're not going to try and plant it in anything. We're just going to leave it as natural. We're planning on putting like a little pergola or a gazebo or something down, maybe a little section down there where you can have a picnic or something, and then a trail out to the river trail out there, so that we have a trailhead out to lead out there. And so that's our tentative plans right now. Of course, all of these things will be decided once we get engineering, and we would have to come through the planning commission and show you our plans once everything was done, obviously. But all of that stuff is just going to be left natural. Maybe clean up some dead logs that are out there and do some general cleanup. But yeah, we'll just leave it as is.
So I come as, I have 3 hats right now. I have 3 hats. A real estate agent, planning commissioner, and I live in River Glen.
Okay.
So this does affect my property and my value, for just as these folks have said as well. And I wonder why couldn't you build something that's more
In line.
more in line,
Yeah.
with what River Glen has. I mean, bigger homes are selling just as well as smaller homes.
And that's one thing that we're trying to do I mean, affordability right now is one of the main things that we're dealing with right
For
now.
sure.
And so, as planning goes and planning concepts, as you go from a commercial zone to a lower density zone, you typically have steps. And that's that's just
So
kinda
you want to reach, I mean, what price range are you thinking you're going to reach?
probably 450.
That's going to crush us. That just you've got storage units, then you're going to have a price of 450. You say, I
It
mean,
could be 500. I don't know.
right. I mean, costs go up all the time.
Yeah.
Nothing's going
So,
down.
For example, in Panunzio Farms, we sold the home in there, our first home, at 460. Our last one we sold at 560.
Right.
So, I mean, and you've seen those homes in there, and I'm guessing we're going to be between 450 and 500.
And it depends on cost and when you can get materials and all those things. But that just slays our value over in River Glen. And thank you that's not an eyesore over there. Never has been.
I just know, when I said eyesore, I just know that in talking to Mike, it's been a drain on the city as far as dealing with the issues that have come up on that property, as far as the bringing in all the import that was brought in, and I should have used different verbiage.
Right. Right. I mean, so I guess you're not willing to relook at maybe doing bigger homes. I mean, it doesn't right now, and it's foreseeable for several years. It doesn't matter what price point you're in. The houses are going to sell.
I know, and I understand that. Our mode of operation is that we operate very cautiously. We don't go out and haphazardly just buy a ton of ground, and we are very cautious about what we do and where we go. We don't want to just pretend the market is going to go on forever, and so we want to make sure that we don't want to get ourselves in over our heads.
So you're going to stay. This is the zone you want to stay in.
That's what
period.
we'd like to do.
It just.
Are you doing the R1 4-5 as opposed to the R18? Are you doing this so you can gain one or two more lots, or
That's basically what it is. It allows us to get about another couple of lots.
So it's density you're going for.
Yeah. So it's basically what it would be.
What about their standing? So now, well, there's another facet that I have. You have the elevation differences with the storage units, then this land, and then the River Glen houses. And I was a part of when Mr. Hilton was talking. There was a big group of us that were not for the storage units.
Yeah, I understand that.
And we said, when a flood happens, and it will happen, it's going to flood River Glen if you build these up. And it did. It flooded big time. There was 5 houses, I believe, that hit, and it nailed them hard. So adding more to that is going to add more pressure onto the houses of River Glen.
What, I guess, you mean what type of pressure? I'm sorry, I don't understand.
More, so you have the elevation of the storage units, then the elevation that you're going to have where you want to build, and then that's just adding more water pressure for when another flood happens. It's going to kick in harder over into River Glen because of all the elevation differences.
So, right now we haven't done any topographical studies.
What was that?
Right now we haven't done any topographical engineering or surveying.
Okay.
And so I know just by standing out on the property and looking at the property that it does raise up in the middle and then it falls off to the end. Our concept is that we are going to have a cul-de-sac, and we've already passed this by Sean Douglas, and we are going to be able to bring the elevation of that down a a little bit in order to get a road that goes straight back. I've got a drawing of what the road is, what we've, a tentative thing that we had, or plat that we, I can show you here if my iPad will open.
I think we
And
have
that road is going to have negative slope towards the river.
Oh, no, we don't have.
We don't have the
No.
drawings of the house or
I
anything.
have, just because this is a rezone, I didn't turn anything in.
Okay.
But I can pass this around if you guys want to take a look at it.
Is it gonna show us the elevation differences?
Not going to show us any elevation. It's just going to, it's basically the plat, what we're looking at
Okay.
doing. But there's going to be a negative grade from the road, just like into your subdivision. It's going to slope down towards the river. And so all of the flow of the water is going to go down, and we're going to be able to drain into the same location where your subdivision and the other subdivisions are draining into the stormwater. And so basically we're not going to be building the houses up higher and trying to build that up any further. In fact, we're going to be bringing it down. In my mind's eye, as I've just eyed it, bird's eye view, just looked at it,
Sure.
it looks like we're going to be able to flatten that out.
You'll be on
and-
the same elevation that River Glen's in?
Yeah, so we're going to be close to the same elevation as because we don't want to be towering over them, but yet we are going to be on top of that fill that's in there. And so we're not wanting to, it's going to be pretty close to the elevation where River Glen is right now.
What about the standing water that's in there? I mean,
We're not going to be anywhere near that. So the way that we've come across, way that we've taken care of this is we're actually going to build these homes on what's called helical piers. And so rather than pulling all the dirt out and recompacting it and putting it back in, there is an accepted and designed system. I've already talked to Mr. Woody about this, and he said that it would work and that he would pass it with code. Of course, it's all put together by engineers, and they screw these piers into the ground about every 8 feet around the exterior of the foundation. Pour a monolithic slab around the foundation, and that's what your house sits on.
they're
So
expensive.
that no matter what, the ground underneath you can freeze or thaw, and it doesn't affect and so you don't have any weight sitting on the fresh soil or the
So it can
imported
float
soil.
underneath.
What's
but your-
that?
It could float underneath, but your house won't move?
That's right. So like I say, those go down into the earth until they get a certain pressure on those, and they use them all the time. And they've actually got a bunch of homes built by Triple Crown up there over on the North Ogden Divide. They are using these piers up there, helical piers, on all of the homes up there.
So, are you finished?
Yeah.
Okay. So, in your answers, you said, and again, you said that you would change this. You said currently the property is not utilized as an eyesore. So, your answers to why the subdivision should be allowed basically are partly because the property is an eyesore. You said that you would change that. How would you change that, and how would that benefit the city with the change that you would make?
I think is what I was trying to get at when I was talking about that is I know that there's been a lot of problems. I should have said the property has been problematic for the city because I know that there's a history there. I don't know all of the history. I just know that there's been history with the current owner bringing in Phil. That the neighbors weren't happy with all the activity going on over there, that there was a lot of problems and issues. So I was trying to put across that it was a piece of property that was problematic.
Yeah, Mike, you mentioned that you might know some of the history or a fuller amount of the history. Could you maybe give us some of that, a fuller idea of what the history of that property is?
Yeah, and I think Mr. Park has alluded to a lot of it already as well, so it may be somewhat redundant, but the bottom line of the issues have been historically what's been hit on is the wetlands. Obviously, we've hit on that one. And then probably maybe 7 years ago, we noticed large amounts of fill starting to come in on the property from the owner. That was, we believe, from a hospital redevelopment project up at either McCady or Ogden Regional. And so all this fill started showing up. And so once we caught wind of it, the city basically requested that the property owner and the people bringing in the loads of fill cease and desist. So we put an end to that. But the fill was already on site, and it had already been graded and leveled. And then after the fact, the owner started coming in and then started digging these kind of like ditches as a remediation for the fill that he'd brought in, so that the water wouldn't bring soils and drain differently to the neighboring properties and impact them. So it was quite a challenge, and it led to quite consternation with the owner, and wrote him a very pointed letter that these issues needed to be resolved prior to developing the property. And then the third issue is that there is a floodplain in the back, and with the fill that was scraped, it seemed to be that the fill had filled in areas of the floodplain, which when you do that, you're starting to now cross into our, to FEMA standards, and that you're impacting the floodplain with fill, and you need to get what's called a LOMA or a LOMA F to basically amend the site for fill and or remediate the fill to meet FEMA standards. And so all those items were brought up in the letter. The letter was signed by our city administrator, Mr. Worthen, at the time, provided to Mr. Purin. And we thereafter got some calls from Mr. Purin. He was clearly unhappy, and the property sat as is. And so there's been multiple interested parties, and even his representative agents have tried to ask solutions for this. And every time it's kind of like, well, you need to take out all the fill, because clearly we don't know what the soil substrates are that were brought in and whether they're even developable. And we don't know if there's rebar or concrete or whatever in that fill. We just don't know, right? And so it's not good fill. And so multiple interested parties had asked those questions, and the brokers had asked us questions, and we tried talking to them. And then Mr. Park caught wind of the property and asked me candidly, same thing, like, what's still with this property? What are the issues? And so I indicated to Mr. Park the same issues and let him know there's a letter on the table. And then obviously he since explored options to resolve or work with those issues and see where we go. And that's again why we're here today. So there's your, hopefully long and short. Does that give enough?
Thank you. Yes.
So you don't have to take the fill out, but somebody else would?
At the time, the thought was we didn't know about helical pier construction, but it is a legitimately recognized construction that would allow them to develop regardless of what the substrate is of the fill.
Okay.
So it is recognized by building code. Our building official, I just talked to him today, he said, yes, it is a legal building option that would eliminate the need to take out that fill from a building code perspective.
So, and you know what those concerns were that were in the letter, and so everything that you have done and proposed will satisfy everything that was put forward in that letter. Is that what you're telling us?
Let me tell you what we've done. So we first put this property under contract. First thing we did, we went out and dug about 3 or 4 test holes. We found that, of course, there was fill. We found that it was clean fill in the areas that we dug. Of course, you don't ever know because you dig 3 or 4 test pits. And we found that it was amenable to be able to do this pier construction. So we set a meeting with Sean Douglas and Todd Brantz from CNC.
Todd Freeman.
He's the new city engineer. We met with him and with my engineer, and we proposed how to put the roadway in and how to do the construction, and both of them thought that it sounded good, but they wanted some more test pits. So we went out and dug 5 or 6 more test pits down the middle of the road, found exactly the same thing in those test pits that they were everywhere else. Sean was concerned that maybe there was some trees buried, that there was something, a hidden elephant in there or something. So we went and dug about another bunch of test pits about every 100 feet down the road, looking for any problems or issues, and things looked really well. So we've got our soils engineer coming back with a solution on the road, and then we have our structural engineer who has the solution for the helical piers. And so all along, we went down, we talked with the mayor, because we knew that there was a city council member and the mayor that lived right there. We wanted to, I had never, been formally introduced or talked with them. They knew about, some of the projects we've done here in the city. I've enjoyed working with the city. And so we thought, if there's any way to develop this property, we'd like to take a shot at it, because hopefully we've developed 30 homes here within the city. We've had some very happy homeowners, and we've hopefully put together a good product that the city is proud of, that we're proud of. And so if we can do that here again, we would love to do that. And so by expressing eyesore, I was trying to express maybe a pain in the behind for the city because Mike's been dealing with this property for several years. And I know there's been a lot of issues. The owners hasn't expressed, he's had it up for sale for over a year and a half. And so anyway, that's where I stand.
One other question that I have. I know that in most of our subdivisions, we are putting, well, all of our subdivisions, water retention is a concern. And I know in the subdivisions that you've done, each one of them has a retention area. I think that you mentioned that you were going to be draining the property into basically where River Glen is draining the property now. Does that meet our codes
So the state,
and what
so
we're looking
the state
for
goes
as far
back
as
and
that
forth on-
retention is concerned?
Yeah, the state goes back and forth whether we keep water, whether we detain water, whether we retain water. It's a battle back and forth. Right now, the state wants to refill the aquifers, and so they're making us do more retention rather than detention because they want the water to sit in the detention basins and go back into the ground. So in talking to Mr. Douglas, he says, look, everybody else is draining right into there. You can drain right into the, I mean, basically we have a retention basin on our property that River Glen and everybody else is dumping into. He says, we'll just have you dump in there and that will be your retention basin.
And there will be a cycle come around again where we're no longer in a drought, but we're in a time period where we have a lot of water.
You're exactly
How
right.
is that going to affect runoff into like River Glen, like we had the flooding in there before? I mean, we're just basically adding more water into that same space. I think where the water came from. That flooded River Glen.
Yep.
Well, that water is water that's typically going there anyway. I mean, because that water's only water that's going in there is the water that's on the street, and we can release into there at certain rates. And so I don't have all of those answers for you right now because we haven't designed the project yet. I know conceptually the homes are going to be on the higher end, and then the detention is going to be down where it's because we're not going to bother that detention area. We're not going to do anything with that. And so as far as all of the numbers for a 100-year storm and all of these items that we will have, that has to be designed into the subdivision as it gets designed. And so we have the engineers take care of all of that. And right now, we haven't moved forward to that step because we're on the rezone step right now. So all of that will be, you'll see that in future plat maps and whatnot.
Will you have to increase the size of that because of the additional homes that you're putting in?
I don't think so. Basically, it's not the homes that run the water off, it's the street that runs the water because the rain lands on the ground around the homes. And so the only water that we're adding is just this section of street right there. And so I know that they've allowed 2 other subdivisions in, and so I don't think, and again, that will be determined by the.
But aren't these designed for like 100-year runoff, and so it's designed for the lots that are existing, and then you're going to add more to it? Won't that change the 100-year plan, or?
That's what we leave the civil engineers to figure out, because they will know where all of that water's coming from. They can calculate all that and make sure that.
Is that going to affect your setting up your lots? I mean,
it could, and I don't have those answers for you yet. So, like I say, until we get through the rezone process, that's when we'll start spending money on civil design.
Now the issues with the floodplain. Are you required to submit anything through FEMA or anything with that?
No. So I've Bowen Collins is the company that has, and I've got documentation from them that we have our LOM RF in there, and that we are good to move any of that dirt around, and that we can actually work on that property, and there's no further problems. They just said that now. There is a map that has a couple of lines on it that says you can't enter into this area, but it's nowhere near where we want to be. And so on the easterly end of the property, there is an area that says you can't touch this area, but it doesn't matter to us because we don't want to be in that area anyway. It's all open space. So this is kind of the property here. Here's Parker Drive. Here's the designated wetlands area, and they said this is the area that is now designated out of the floodplain area. So they said we can do whatever we want in this area. We plan on coming to about right in here somewhere. So, but this is straight from Bowen Collins, and the FEMA. They deal with FEMA all the time, and they've cleared us for that. Like I said, we've tried to do a lot of homework. I've spent the last month and a half on this. We've hired engineers. We've dug holes all over the property. We've had civil engineers, soils engineers, structural engineers taking a look at all of this. And so we're trying to at least see if it's viable. And if it wasn't viable, then we wouldn't even be here. But we feel that, it is viable.
Any more questions, anybody? Thank you, Mr. Park.
It's obvious you've put a lot of work into this. Thank you.
Okay, a motion would be in order.
I would like to make a motion that we table this so we have more information about the elevation, the water. We didn't have any of that in our packets,
Okay, further.
so we can further review.
When you say elevation, just as a point of clarification, what are you asking for so that the applicant knows?
So like he was describing how the roads are gonna be, I think you had walked out at that point.
So you're talking about just like conceptual design?
A little bit, but he
Element.
was talking about how it was gonna be compacted down
Okay.
and more level along with the other houses that are there and not built up like the storage units are.
So development design impacts to the site, if you will, that kind of
Yes.
information. Okay.
Thank you, Amy. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Oh, poll the commissioners, please. Thank you.
Aye.
Commissioner Knight?
Aye.
Commissioner Spire?
Aye.
Commissioner Eskelsen?
Aye.
Commissioner Herman?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you so much. We appreciate everybody and their comments. Do we have any other items from city staff or the commission? With that,
Staff has no comments at this time.
has no comments? Okay. Then a motion would be in order.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, where?
This is the general plan.
That's the one motion I will make.
The minutes.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.